Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Mekaeel Malik and I'm here with the Dawn Media Group. I have the honor of having caught Justice Ayesha Malik, the Justice of the Supreme Court, right after her address at the Breathe Pakistan conference. So we thought we'd take her insight into how she sees the jurisprudence developing and how the Supreme Court can possibly play a more active role. Ma'am, it's an honor to be seated here with you. First of all, I'd kind of grow right into the meat of the topic. You've authored a phenomenal judgment that's been acclaimed globally on the bodily and autonomy rights of a woman, and I think that really ties into the constitutional rights that are embedded within our constitution. How do you see that judgment and similar jurisprudence that you've activated on the environmental side, because the right to clean air and a healthy environment is a fundamental right of every Pakistani citizen?
So, thank you for having me at the conference. It's been a pleasure. And I think this is an important question. The right to clean air and the right to breathe clean air is a fundamental right. And this has evolved through a rich jurisprudence where the judges have recognized the fact that even though the Constitution does not explicitly grant a right to a clean and healthy environment, but in the right to life and in the right to the dignity of life, judges have read in the right to clean air. And it's a fundamental right, which means that it is fundamental that citizens are granted this right. But with any fundamental right, what's important also is institutional commitment. If you don't have institutional commitment, if you don't have a strong enforcement and implementation mechanism, then this right is what is just written on paper and it's not really implemented. And I think the object of the conference also is to find out where the gaps are, how to improve enforcement. But I believe that the right to clean air is a fundamental right. It's been said it's time and again, and really our focus should be on enforcement.
Ma'am, just coming back to jurisprudence, I think the Pakistani high courts and Supreme Courts have been very active because our jurisprudence dates back to '97 as the first environmental documents that came out. But I think from your lens, I think sitting afar from our lens, it seems very easy that a Supreme Court judge says something and it must happen in this country. And how do you see the enforcement from the authorities around, and how do you think we can make it better from an institutional response standpoint, where the judiciary makes a decision and the executive has to implement it? Where do you see the gaping hole is?
So there are many gaps, and as you said, the jurisprudence dates back to 1996. And if from 1996 till today we're still saying that this is a fundamental right, but don't have much to show for it, that means that we really have to look at what is happening on the enforcement and implementation side. Judges cannot ensure clean air. Judges can ensure that the executive does what it's required to do to give the citizen that clean air. So I think there are many gaps. One of the biggest areas is that we do a lot of planning and paperwork, but to see that through reporting, monitoring, data, capacity building, that's all required. And then you need the fundamental commitment and will to know that clean air is fundamental to people. You need resource allocation. You have to prioritize it. It's no longer an inconvenience, an environmental inconvenience. It's become a public health emergency. Everybody is on some medication, everybody's eyes, ears, chest, there's always a problem. So we have to recognize the fact that the air we are breathing is not clean, and that means that en masse citizens are deprived of their fundamental right. So it's a big challenge, and I think merely planning, we're way beyond the planning stage. We have to go and have put our words into action.
And do you see any, I know there's a lot of talk about training and capacity building and all of these jargons that we keep talking about again and again, but from a judicial lens, you sit at the Supreme Court, and then there's high courts in the provinces, and the executive power of, frankly, environmental execution sits within the provinces now. So from your lens, how do you see that trickle down effect to actually enforce whatever?
So there is no trickle down. So we earmark certain judges to do environment issues because they may understand it better. We don't realize that the issue of environment is no longer just a small subset of governance. It is the the subset, it's not a subset, it goes through, it's the thread that goes through all departments. Everyone has to think about it, everyone has to talk about it, everyone has to be committed to it. And more importantly, we have to understand that from the day go, whatever we are planning, we have to talk about the environment. We have to talk about air, we have to talk about water, we have to ensure that people get a clean environment. What we tend to do is reactive. There is a problem and then the whole system firefights that problem and reacts to it. So while we're firefighting today, I would say we also need to plan for that tomorrow that's coming. It can't just be simply firefighting. In the same way, all judges have to understand that these are fundamental rights which everyone has to enforce in any kind of litigation. It could be a contract matter, a construction matter, it could be a matter where you haven't really thought about it, but you have to put on that lens to see, is there an environment component to it? Is there an air related issue, a water related issue? Is this urban planning? Where is the issue? So, you know, from the smallest of things like culling of dogs to bigger issues of industry and just looking at the pollutants that are in the air pollution is a big issue and we all contribute, and so we need to see that how are we going to stop it. I think public awareness is also very important, and really having advertisement is not enough. The public has to believe in it because it has to change its behavior.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. This is so kind of you, and we're waiting for some of the snippets to come out from your speech earlier as well. Thank you.